Hi everyone, welcome back to the White Coat Club. My name is Nicole and I'm a counselor at Moon Prep. I have Amanda with me here today, and we are going to be continuing our essay mini series. Today we're going to be talking about why major, or the intellectual curiosity question that a lot of schools are asking. So don't forget to like and subscribe for more BSMD and admissions advice. All right, so why major? What are you intellectually curious about? What are you interested in studying? A lot of these schools, or a lot of schools, will ask kind of the same general question. So I guess, Amanda, today we're going to be talking about kind of how to make it as specific as possible while still being able to kind of generalize maybe the formatting or certain things that are important to make sure you do when writing these essays.
Yes, for sure. I think this question looks, like you said, looks very different. So kind of like same question, different font. I can give an example of USC. They ask how you plan to pursue these academic interests and specifically why you want to explore them at USC specifically. And versus Rice, that just kind of explains, like, explain why you wish to study in the academic areas. So they do have very intentional ways of asking this question. But we're here to give you all the advice on how to answer those.
Yeah. You mentioned USC. I know Michigan has one. I know, just even some of like just regular schools are asking, whether it's BSMD or non-BSMD, are asking just kind of why are you interested in studying this major, or what major are you interested in studying?
Mhm.
So I guess there's some things to kind of do homework wise for yourself before you begin to write, and just like some things to think about. So I think for me, I mostly want to have the student focus on, well, when and why and how did you come about even choosing this major? It's kind of less of maybe what you want to do in the future, but just like, why did you even have the interest in the first place? I think a lot of kids jump into like, well, I want to be this, this career. I want to have this job. And
Mhm.
that's great. We'll definitely get to that. But I think first and foremost, like, when and how did this even become an interest to you?
Mhm.
Because not only are you just telling them, we always like to go back and say, well, why are they asking us this question? They're going to know what major you're choosing because you're going to put it on the application.
Mhm.
But they want to know, why are you interested? And it's less of, well, I want this career. It's like, how do you know that you want that career? What have you done so far to get you to this point where you know that this career or this subject matter is for you?
Mhm.
So thinking about, have you done any summer programs, read any books, taken classes? Is it connected to a hobby, internship? Like, are your parents in this field? Like, how did this kind of all come about for you? Should be, one of the first main things that you're thinking of. And then after that, connecting it to, well, what will I do with it in the future? What kind of role, career, job will I get into? And then how, kind of bridging it, how is this going to help me get here? Because, a lot, if you're not doing med school, or if you are doing med school, or if you want to do a master's degree, it may not directly link to
Mhm.
a career, right? Like, biology major, okay, and then how is it linking you to your future career? I want to eventually go to med school or something like that.
Mhm.
Is there anything else that you have them kind of think about, or any other tips that you share with students when approaching this?
Yeah, I think when it comes to like becoming interested in the major, again, like being super specific with that, I always tell them to like see if they've written down something in your notes app from years ago. See if there was like a project you did way while back when you said, when I grow up, I want to be this. Like, I promise it didn't just come out of nowhere. Really finding your reasoning.
Yeah. And then another thing is, being as specific as possible.
Hmm.
So now that's going to be your why. And a lot of times, like we said, you might have maybe even 4 to 5 schools that are asking you the same general question. So the first part that we just chatted about, um, it's probably going to say the same. Your why, your wants, your background into it. It's probably none of that's really going to change. I think for the most part, you're probably applying to the same major or type of major for school, and your why is true to you, and that's not going to change. But now when we get into each prompt, we need to be super specific when it comes down to why, at that school, and answering that specific prompt, because they're all generally asking the same things, but some of them are a tiny bit different. Like you said, like same question, different font.
Yeah.
Um, So making sure you're actually answering what the school is asking you and not having just like one generalized essay that you're just copy pasting over, a few
Mhm.
different schools. So why, some schools will ask why at this school. So think about like why are you wanting to do the major specifically here versus somewhere else. Um, and then obviously, like if they're asking about non-specifics or non-academics, like don't specifically mention something that isn't related to their prompt, that you might have added for a different prompt.
Mhm.
What are some other things like generally?
Yeah. So definitely when we're thinking about STEM majors, honestly any major, but just be so wary of this. Don't say you want to make money or want to work at a very specific place. Yes, the school may get you those things, but they're really tying it back to your interests. Like you're a senior, you're in high school. Of course, you're not going to get all of this quite yet. But really taking the time to talk about what you want out of, the next 4 years, X amount of years, not talking about the end goal of money or working at a very specific place. I will also say they are very aware that they're number 3 in the New York Times. You don't
Yeah.
need to mention the prestige of the school. Similar to those Why Us essays, they are well aware of their rankings in insert article here. This is your time to talk about your interests and what you will use at the school. Those are two very big ones. Any other ones, Nicole?
No, absolutely. Like I've gotten so many times where students will say, well, you were ranked in Forbes, top 10 for business majors. They know, and it is not a needed point. I think it's similar to like kind of the why this school we've talked about. You don't need to be telling them things that they already know. They know they have a great program, they know they have a great school, they know all of it. You need to tell them why you are a fit for it and why it's specific to you. So, kind of a lot of the things that we talked about for the why this school essay will kind of be relevant for the why major essay.
Mhm.
Don't just mention, oh, you have this club that's related, or you have study guides or study opportunities and groups. They know, like, what are you going to do with it? Why is that key for you specifically as a person? Um, Definitely not choosing this major because your parents want you to. Like I think a lot of times when we're working with students who are going to go into physician majors, they'll say it'll kind of be part of their why major of like maybe a family story with parents or doctors or things like that. But we're not going to come right out and say like, well, my parents like this school and they went here and they want me to go here. um it needs to be written for you want to attend this school. I know we said this before, but I'm going to hit it again. If you're reusing essays, which you'll reuse some of it because your why is still going to be your why, your major is still going to be your major. But why this specific school? Really be careful. So many times we'll reread and you know, somewhere in the depths of it, they're talking about it's written for one school and they have a completely different name or club of a different school or something that's not related to that school in there, as kind of like their evidence-based material for why, and it's not even that school. So really make sure you're going through it with like a fine-tooth comb, making sure you're changing specific details. Because it's going to be important. And then I think sometimes I've had kids who try to, I'm going to say be lazy with it. And it's not laziness. I mean, there's so many essays to write. It's such an intense process. And I think some students are like, oh, well, I don't need to name the specific club. Every school has like, a pre-health advising thing. So I'm just going to say it. I'm not going to name it specifically because I don't want to have to go in and make sure I change it. I don't have to do the research. I'll just state it. And that's not going to be nearly as impactful. Like
Mhm.
you need to go in and actually name the specifics, call it what it's actually called, like reference it. And then again, making sure you're changing it instead of just generalizing.
Mhm.
But yeah, I've definitely had students will say, look, and then this is why I want to study bio at NYU. And I'm like, well, this was your essay for Boston. So
Mhm.
make sure you're going through it again. And yeah, it's tricky. And I think when you look at it so many times, your eyes kind of like glaze over those things, but definitely make sure. And then I guess, what about if you're not sure what your major is going to be?
Yes, it's totally fine to be undecided. In fact, I think I've seen in every school in Common App there is like the undecided aspect in the major question. It is totally fine to talk about multiple areas of interest. I tell students though, like don't just say things just to say it and leave it. Maybe show that you have done some work in your interest. So, like we said earlier, if you've done any research or volunteering or books or anything like that, definitely give a why in your interest. And it's not a bad thing if you want to change your mind. Like they're not going to revoke it because you said you wanted to do maybe something related to psychology and then you end up doing business. They just want to see who you are and your interests. And again, being probably specific as to why you're interested in those interests. I always tell students like don't have a million. Like definitely have a few that you can really dive into. But that's just kind of the starting point to the why. Is there anything else, Nicole?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like undecided should not be like completely clueless.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
undecided just means like I'm not ready to fully declare what I want to do,
Yeah.
or like apply to a specific school or program at the moment. But these are my interests, and this is what I've been doing to explore my interests. And this is what I want to do at your school to continue that
Mhm.
exploration. It's not like I just have no clue and I'm like a floating balloon and wherever the wind takes me,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah.
I've definitely had students write that. We're like, I'm just looking for the college experience to guide me. It's like you have to have some type of something here. We
Mhm.
can't just be a floating balloon in the wind.
Yeah.
Um, but again, if you are, there's no problem to declaring undecided or saying that you're not sure, but you have to at least give them something about you that they can go off of
Mhm.
instead of just flexibility. What have you been doing? What do you like? I explored this. And I think sometimes too, I'm working with one student specifically right now who really thought they wanted to do medicine and did some things in their younger grade levels about to explore that, did, some volunteering, some shadowing, a lot of medicine related things. And then because of it, they realized they didn't really love it. So they don't want to move forward with it, which is that's completely fine. So the student was kind of in a panic, like, well, now I want to go into business and I've only done a couple of things, but my resume mostly shows medicine. So how can I don't want it to look bad. And, that's exactly what they want to see, that you explored it and you either recognize it is for me or isn't for me. And, kind of walk them through how you got to that point and then how you decided that business is what you want to do and what you did to explore that further. And, just kind of walk them through what you're thinking, what you've done, and how you came to this conclusion.
Mhm.
Instead of just, he was going to like completely avoid the medicine piece at all. Like, I'm just going to act like it never happened. But then he only had like one activity for business. So it wasn't going to be that strong. So we kind of backtracked. We're like, well, how did we get here? Let's, walk them through that first.
Mhm.
And then looking back, there was some things that he did in his medical experience on more of the business side of medicine and like the admin side where that kind of led him on that path, that trajectory. So, don't be afraid to kind of talk about what didn't work also.
Mhm.
And then I guess, the other really big thing that comes into play is the word count. Some are, only 100 words to 250 words, some are 500 words, but they're like three-part questions. So, um, I guess like how would you plan to use the shorter prompts wisely?
Mhm. So yeah, definitely depends on the question and not gonna speak for every single school, but the ones that I've seen that do have that lower word count are asking about them. I know one that comes to top of mind is UIUC. They do ask why you want to study at UIUC in 150 words. So when it comes to those shorter ones, going right into if they ask you why the school, go right into why the school. If they ask you, obviously, like your interests, go right into your interests. So it really depends on like the word count in the school. I think it's really good to focus on like maybe 2 to 3 very concrete reasons why you're interested in the major, things that you're most passionate about in your why. And just like rule of thumb, it doesn't ask you why you want to do it at the school. Don't include it. Just talk about your interests. But when it does come to the school, why the school, be very specific on what you want to do and how you'll utilize it. And it's also fine. We can cut this out. Like this is why I want to study at insert university, or I am excited about the potential to participate at XYZ university. We just jump right in. We full send. Yeah. Anything else, Nicole?
Yeah, I think, like you said, 2 to 3 really strong concrete reasons for the major. Again, allotted for the word count. Some are longer, but the short ones definitely just dive right in. You don't need to have any of this filler. Like, get to the point, be specific. There's no need for kind of all the other fluff.
Mm-hmm.
And then, even the ones that are longer, really try to avoid the fluff. They don't want that. You really try to get to it. But especially for the short ones, I know, we do a lot of conversation about the narrative style of writing and like get into the story and all that. But if it's a short prompt, we can lose some of that. Like that's not all needed.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I feel like we say the kind of this, we've said a lot of the same tips for some of these essays. Be specific, be specific, be specific, specific to you. If there's 50 people applying for the same major and you guys all have similar stats and similar things, like why is this major good for you? And what do you know about why you want it? And like, just let them kind of understand how you're going to take advantage of their program. Anything else?
I would just say do your homework. I know that researching these schools and majors does take time, but it's like you said, Nicole, if there's 50 people applying, you're definitely going to want to take the time to stand out and share how you do want to utilize the majors and everything that the major offers. So, going the extra mile, especially for questions like this, will be very helpful.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks for listening and, join us next time for a little bit more of these essay prompt series. And yeah, thank you.